Alrighty, Antonia, Project Do Better. Very
Morning.
good interview. Very excited to do this interview. Very
Likewise.
excited to give the people your word and introduce them into your book as well. Before we get into that, we just want to learn a little bit about your life and then we'll get into your works. So I'll leave the floor to you.
Well, I was born in DC and I went to elementary school actually up north in New Jersey, East Orange, New Jersey. But so when I was a little kid, most summers, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, I went back down south, down to DC to spend the summer with my great grandmother, like most of us children of the Great Migration. Um, but I went to live with my dad back in the DC area when I was in middle school and went to high school at Dunbar Senior High School in DC. And I got uh, an appointment to the U.S. Naval Academy for class of 92 from Walter Fauntroy, who was the non-voting representative to the House from the district, because District of Columbia, we have taxation without representation, which is
Mhm.
true. I'm sorry, you know that. Anyway, I did not graduate from the Naval Academy though, because I was a little bit too outspoken. Uh, as I was told, I had the courage of my convictions because the upperclassmen were pretty gung ho about, I don't want you in my Navy if you can't kill a man, Miss Jones. But there's a difference between unfortunately being willing to take a life if necessary in the service of defending civilians and protecting the most vulnerable. But it should always, even back then when I was much more conservative,
Mhm.
I believed that one should never celebrate taking a life, no matter
Great.
how. So that experience at Annapolis really changed me. I grew up with, my father, both of my grandfathers, obviously they had served during World War II, and both of them went back to Howard after the war. Both of them graduated, I think my paternal, I'm not sure. I know he went to Howard, but apparently he was selling essays while he was there.
Mm.
That's the Jones side of the family. In any case, sorry, I'm rattling on about
No, no,
myself.
we are on no time frame. You have the floor completely. Take as much
Okay.
time as you need.
Okay. But I say all that to say that someone who had an appointment and spent the first semester for the academic year at Annapolis and saw a lot during plebe summer, the first three, the beginning of second set. So third or fourth week of plebe summer, actually, one of my classmates committed suicide.
Mm.
And that's not actually all that unusual for one of the service academies, West Point, Annapolis. The reaction of my classmates was what really confused me because they made jokes about it.
Really?
Yeah. And someone explained to me later on that that's a coping mechanism because, as it turns out, when I arrived at the Naval Academy, I already had PTSD, but I didn't know it. I really had to grit my teeth through high school because we were homeless a couple of times. We got evicted a couple of times when I was in the end of middle school and then when I was at Dunbar beginning of my senior year, I think. And I was really lucky to have a couple of instructors who made sure I had food, clothing, and shelter. I got a scholarship for a foreign exchange. The day before we were supposed to leave, it was me and one other girl from Dunbar, kids from, there were 60 of us, I think, from all over the country. And she hands me $100, says, buy something for yourself.
Mm.
And at the time, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't understand it because, I was the kid that they were making fun of in my summer internship, the engineering internship, because I was working during the day as an intern. And then I had a job at night in the bakery. And one of the other guys found out, and I didn't hear the end of it at work. starting the next day. Like, why do they? So these are all middle class. And the same thing, I was in the pre-engineering program at Dunbar, and I was the only one who got through the program who was not from the Black elites in DC.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everyone knows that at Howard, at least back in the day, you had to be light-skinned. But it was also a bourgeois thing. And
Oh
my
yeah.
classmates at Dunbar, and this is the late 80s, um, were all, except for me, black bourgeois, very upper class. Yeah, cars, it's high school guys driving cars. So, of course, when I went to Annapolis, I made the Washington Post a couple of times, and there was a lot of pressure, a lot of expectations. So when I bilged out, it was bad. It was difficult. And I couldn't explain to anyone that I couldn't hold it together
Right.
because I was the one plebe not getting chow packages. Their families would send them cookies and all that. And a lot of the time, upperclassmen would just say, leave the wardroom. We hadn't had a chance to eat anything, right? So I was the only one ordered not to lose any weight. And the problem was that with undiagnosed PTSD, which of
Mm-hmm.
course at the time, CPTSD, complex PTSD, didn't even exist
Right.
in 1989. So this idea that you could be a child and have PTSD was absurd. And I thought of it the same way, grit your teeth and keep going, right? Put your head down. And survival is very good at focusing you.
Mm-hmm.
So I was focused all through high school because I knew if I didn't get a scholarship, that was it. My half, well, I had family members who made, let's say, other choices,
Mm-hmm.
and those choices were available to me. And I got stopped in the middle of the street one day by a drug dealer, and I was just like, I tried to cross the street a block ahead. He spotted me. Boom, this is when I lived in Anacostia, southeast, a part of DC that I think even today the taxis don't go. So what we really need, and I thought at the time that hard work was enough.
Right.
I didn't understand that I was part of the talented 10th, and I didn't understand that it takes not just being smart enough in an academic way, but also luck. The luck that my dad knew the right person at the right time to get me to the interview,
Mm-hmm.
and the luck that the principal for the part that was a public-private partnership recognized that I was going to be able to get through the program. And all of that disappeared at Annapolis because I suddenly realized that hard work isn't enough.
Mm-hmm.
Intelligence isn't enough. And I went, I had other engineering scholarships. I didn't want to major in engineering. I wanted to major in languages and history. And I was told point blank, you like to eat, kid? You're going to get a scholarship. Where are the scholarships? Engineering. Okay. And I was able to do that because I could put everything else aside, focus, and because I like mathematics.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not great at math. It takes a lot of work, but I was able to do the engineering curriculum and I got a job, professional job, working as a software engineer. I was in the industry for about 10 years. And yeah, there was a lot of racism, especially in Maryland, where I was informed that certain people, their property owners don't want people who look like you on their property. I'm like looking around going, it's not a secret. I never tried to pass for white, but I forgot we're in Maryland. They want to make sure that light-skinned Black folks don't try to pass for white.
Oh
And
yeah.
this was not a new experience. The same thing had happened in Woodbridge, Virginia when I was in middle school. And I thought, something's wrong here. This meritocracy that we're supposed to have, it doesn't exist. It's a joke. It's actually a cruel joke because the idea of meritocracy is nothing more than a camouflage. So how do you build a system that really does work for everyone? And I switched careers, became a math teacher. I thought maybe that would be the way to do something, make a difference. And when the economy took a downturn, I thought, not only is it not enough to have an engineering degree, it's not even enough to be an instructor. A math teacher is always supposed to have a job, right? No, that's not true. But I saw kids that I tried to keep in school and they wouldn't stay. And they said, "What planet do you live on, Miss Jones?" I went, I hated to have to agree with them, but I was like, you know what? I was lucky in a lot of ways, not just with high intelligence, but lucky that both sides of my family, even if my parents kind of failed, both sides of my family had been from the Black elites. They had
Hmm.
been raised. My father was raised in an environment that, no, there wasn't much love there. But again, Howard University, be a credit to the race. It was an idea that destroyed him. Well, that along with marrying a sociopath. But and my mother was from, Dr. Burke. That was her father. This is an idea, it's a setting where you're pushed to succeed, not only to be a credit to your race, but also to believe in this meritocracy.
Right.
And where the colonel in our junior OTC unit used to tell us, make the system work. I mean, he was a contemporary of the Tuskegee Airmen,
Mm.
and we worshiped the Tuskegee Airmen at the time, the 99th Pursuit Squadron. Wow, they broke the color barrier, they did things for us. But when we try to climb those stepping stones, only a very, very small percentage of people can actually do that.
Oh yeah.
And it's not a matter of ability, it's a matter of being allowed the opportunity. And I thought, how do we build a world where everyone has an opportunity and not just an opportunity? Because, you know, most of my classmates didn't do well on the SAT because they were so smart. Most of them had tutors. I was lucky that I didn't need a tutor, but I would have done a lot better on the math side. I
Hmm.
mean, there were so many things I saw and realized years later that money makes a huge difference in your opportunities from the word go, from the time you're born. And that's where early childhood education comes in, but it's also housing, healthcare, transportation, because going to high school in DC, I might not have had the money. Well, we had, as students, we had tokens. So you could take the metro. But if you didn't have student tokens for the metro was expensive. The buses were inexpensive, but never on time.
Hmm.
But still, this is a world-class transportation system, which never even occurred to me until later on that a lot of kids don't have any access to public transportation,
Hmm.
let alone a metro that covers most of the district.
Oh
So, sorry, that's why I thought, all right, if you want to build a society that gives everyone a chance, even if you have to dig yourself out of a hole, you need good, safe public transportation. It needs to be clean, healthcare, and housing. Every
yeah.
kid needs this. And so, starting from that and backward engineering it, I thought, well, how do you get to there from here and starting with what we already have? So that's why Project Do Better has four phases, the first of which starts with basically what we've already got: libraries, public transpo, a public health system that we, sorry, used to have, sort of, but things that we could build on immediately.
Hmm. Yeah, and phase one is amazing. I was actually just talking to my cousin about the transportation thing about how high-speed rails could directly improve our ability to travel not only throughout my state, Michigan, but
Hmm.
places such as Canada as well. You know, these things
Bingo.
do not exist.
Canada has a good Canada Rail, that's Via Rail that connects the whole country, and it's much better than Amtrak.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I tried Amtrak from San Diego to the district, and you can go from San Diego across to Albuquerque up to Chicago and then down to DC, but the quality is just, excuse me, not fantastic.
Hmm.
And the quality differs between um, the portion between California and Chicago, and then the line from Chicago down to the district,
Hmm.
down to Union Station. So yeah, we could do so much better. And then what if we were to connect all those rail systems from California, from Canada and Mexico? Like Mexico City has a fantastic metro that apparently connects not just Mexico City.
Yeah.
We
Totally.
could.
Totally. Like, and especially being in Michigan, we're so close to
Hmm.
Canada. To
Hmm.
me, it's almost mind-boggling that we don't have a high-speed rail to get to Canada.
Yeah.
Like we're right there.
Yeah. Well, here in Europe, there is high-speed rail. The Eurostar runs basically between Germany and France and Austria and the northern European countries down to Spain. And Spain has excellent high-speed rail, but Portugal kind of got left behind on that one.
Mm.
So even within Europe, things aren't um, equal, but the Europeans have a tremendous head start
Oh yeah.
on us.
Oh yeah.
But of course, right now, because they're following our lead, a lot of that is also at risk. And that's part of the advocacy idea in phase 4. Well, phase 2 also.
Hmm.
And the
So,
serving adults are supposed to help that.
so when we get past phase one, can you speak a
Hmm.
bit about phase two?
Okay. Now, phase 1 and phase 2 really work at the same time.
Right.
Phase 2 brings in this idea of a new adulthood rite of passage
Mhm.
known as the serving adults. And the adulthood challenge, or the serving adulthood challenge, is about allowing every community to set their own standards for adulthood, and not just adults, but adults committed to the idea of defending the most vulnerable and helping to build a world where essentially prisons would not be necessary. So, part of the prison abolition idea is creating a world where we don't need prisons. And the serving adults are meant to be dedicated to this idea.
Hmm. Yeah. And one thing that you said when we spoke was that if people's basic needs were met, the ideas of prisons would not be necessary, as most crime stems from the need or want of money.
Desperation,
Hmm.
despair, and want. And if Franklin Delano Roosevelt's four wants, four freedoms rather, were respected in our country, no one would have to have want of anything or fear of lack. And we can do that. It's distribution problem. And we've always known that it's a distribution issue,
Hmm.
not a matter of lack of resources. It's a matter of lack of political will.
Oh
And
yeah.
starting in phase 2 or even in phase 1, if a community decides to do that, the idea of the serving adults as a group of people committed to changing the world and building or helping to build a system where no one suffers from lack, but also no one is bullied, that no one is left alone. It's a high calling,
Hmm.
but it's not impossible.
Not at all. Not at all. And then when we work our way into phase three,
Hmm.
I believe you spoke a bit more about housing in that phase. Am I correct?
Yes, you are.
Can we get into
I
that?
int Yeah, I tried to leave the phases, especially phases 3 and 4, much more up to communities because everyone has housing issues everywhere.
Oh yeah.
How you deal with them will differ depending on where you are. You've got zoning law issues, you've got climate in terms of what kind of housing can be built. Straw bale houses, adobe, all of these are possibilities that are actually used in some places. And those are creative possibilities that have to be left up to the discretion of the community. And again, serving adults are meant to help with this. But
Hmm.
I tried to focus in phase 3 on the idea of accessible housing, that the serving adults should begin to really push social housing, um, that the idea of housing first and making places available, building a database. So phase 3 starts, again, if communities want to encourage the serving adults to help defend the idea of Dr. King's call for a basic income, which of course has to do with housing, not directly, but it does. And then as well, the federal jobs guarantee, as well as making changes to zoning laws for tiny houses and really pushing for more high density public housing. That starts in phase 3.
Yeah, yeah. And one of the things that I really admire about what you said that is very practical as communities can edit this as they see necessary. This is not like a concrete structure that everyone has to follow, but rather it is a thing you can edit as you see necessary for yourself and for your community. Very
Exactly.
practical, very practical.
I'm an engineer.
No, I can tell, I can tell.
And also, this project is about freedom, but
Mm,
true freedom does not exist if you don't have at least a minimum of economic independence. How many women are forced to stay with wife beaters?
mhm.
How many kids are forced to stay in abusive situations? And how many throwaway teenagers are pushed into or trafficked for the same reasons? If all of them had at least a hotel room size place, and the idea begins in phase 3, but I think I'm moving into phase 4. But if everyone had just some backup plan, place they could go, even if it's no more than a room with a hot plate, and a bathroom,
Yeah.
that
Oh
would
yeah.
be backup insurance.
Yeah. And I also love the idea that you posed about how these rooms or houses
Hmm.
would not be able to be seized by the government. And you could either rent it out or you could swap it with someone else, but the
Mm,
government cannot have their hands on it. I think
exactly.
this is very
That
brilliant.
Thank you. It was just, and I don't see anything in Project Do Better as original. Well, okay, the serving adults might be original, but I was really taking ideas that I thought I had already heard of, or I know I imagined having what I called a tiny condo
Hmm?
for years. I imagined what would be so difficult about giving everybody a little hotel room and, with the footprint on the, maybe nowadays they don't do this, but back years ago, when a kid was born, the birth certificate, they'd stick the footprint on the birth certificate.
Hmm.
And I thought, you get the footprint, the baby's footprint on the new birth certificate and GPS coordinates for this kid's tiny condo. And this is not something that's really a new idea because in Mexico, after the Mexican Revolution in 1910, and this is one of the things I think Emilio Zapata or the other guy associated with Mexican Revolution, they pushed for the implementation of common land. Every Mexican citizen had a share of common land somewhere near their village normally, or even in the city of Mexico. Every Mexican city had a little bit of land that was theirs, not individually necessarily, but it was theirs that they could go to. If you wanted to pitch a tent, you could. You were never going to be out in the street. Now, unfortunately, in the 1980s and with NAFTA in the 90s, a lot of people, the individual title was given out to the common land so that Mexican citizens got title, mm, piece of paper with it. Yeah, here's your land, and they could sell it, and a lot of them did
Mm.
because a lot of Mexicans were pressured into selling their land. So now there's not much common land left. And I thought, now when, excuse me, um, some Mexican friends of mine were explaining to me that, oh, there's called ejidos, and it's your common land. And back in the 80s, we all got a piece of paper with, you have this much common land and an individual title to that land, and they sold it. And I went, what if everybody got an individual title to something, whether it's an acre of land or whether it's, excuse me, a tiny condo,
Mm.
and you can never lose it. So I'm sorry.
You're fine.
So
You're
that you
fine.
can't lose that land that and you can't sell it because I thought, what's the good of being given your acre if you're pressured into selling it? So, excuse me.
Take your time. Take your time.
Pardon me. I'm sorry. I've got a throat thing going on too. So I was really thinking about the ejidos. It's been done. And I'm sure that Mexico is not the only country where, at least in history, I don't know of any other country in recent times, but just over 100 years ago, every Mexican citizen became the owner of his or her own bit of land. Now, if we could do that in the US and make it so that you have the freedom to do what you want with it, but you never lose it by selling it. So you could rent it for 40 years, but it always comes. Oh, and the other reason that this idea is not new is that when you look at the year of Jubilee in the Bible, one of the things that, and I was always fascinated when I read, are we talking the book of Numbers or Exodus and Numbers? And it's repeated in Deuteronomy, where God tells the children of Israel that you shall divide up the land, and it's by tribe, right? You had the 12, well, the 12 tribes, except that the tribe of Levi didn't get any land. Ah, but the two tribes, Benjamin and Manasseh, are what would have been the tribe of Joseph. And so everyone gets land, and there are requirements that if when the five daughters of whatever the guy who dies with no kid, no sons, go to Moses and say, hey, look, our father wouldn't, we should inherit. And what happens is, so there are more rules that are organically added as necessary to
Mm.
keep the land within the tribes. But in the year of Jubilee, the 50th, the 49th year, that 50th, or the end of the 49th year, so that 50th year, all the land that had been sold goes back to the original owner. And I thought, well, why don't we do that?
Right.
That's that's a way of preventing a pyramid. All the land goes right back to being flat. You have a flat distribution. So I thought, what if we did that with 1 acre of land, or even just a tiny condo, a 20 by 20 by 20? Because for those of us who are allergic to smoke and other things, um, insulation helps, but it's not always good enough. And ventilation is very important. If you have a high enough ceiling, it makes it easier to ventilate. And so that's why the tiny condo is 20 by 20 by 20. But I was really thinking of the year of Jubilee, and that's where the idea of not being of the acre or tiny condo being an inalienable right, as we hold these truths to be, one of the inalienable rights being that of property, which, of course, in the Declaration of Independence, when Thomas Jefferson cited John Locke, he changed it because it
Mm.
wasn't life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The original quote was life, liberty, and property. And I thought, that's exactly why we took it out, because we can't possibly have equality of distribution of property. Oh, no. But we could.
Oh yeah.
And we're not even talking about equality of ownership of property or even equality of distribution. We're only talking about a basic minimum that's a backup, not taking anything from anyone. Now, that's the idea of phase four, along with universal health care, universal free education, and free public transportation.
Yeah, and I think that this project is amazing. And when I upload this to my channel, I'll also upload your book as well, inform the people that it's free to edit however they feel that they need to,
Mm-hmm.
as long as there is no monetary gain involved.
Exactly.
And I will also continue to push this message not only to anyone who's willing to listen, but my immediate friends and family as well. I've been speaking to them about your works, some of my friends in Europe, and they all agree on it. Like, especially in America, these are things that can be done. Not saying it will be easy, but it's not
No,
impossible. Not
thank you.
impossible at all.
Exactly. And nothing that's worth doing is ever easy.
Exactement, exactement.
C'est vrai. Merci beaucoup.
Non, de rien. Merci à toi, vraiment. Um, I always love speaking to you because I learned so much just listening, just sitting back and listening and I absorb so much knowledge. It's incredible.
I'd be the walking encyclopedia, as I've been told. But to me, the ability to retain knowledge isn't what's really important. It's the ability to help others learn and structure that knowledge into ways, into plans that will help us move forward. Because, we have computers for uh, retaining knowledge,
Hmm.
but solving problems, that is, I think, one of the most important things that a human being can do. I mean, engineers are taught to solve problems, but I think every human being is creative in a different way.
Right.
And I think if every person, especially starting from childhood, is taught to solve problems in creative fashions, use your creativity to imagine and then build new structures that can help all of us. It's a revolutionary idea that's not really revolutionary, but it could cause a revolution if we all
Oh, yeah.
did that.
Oh yeah.
And we help each other to do that.
Oh
But
yeah.
humanity has to get out of the crab mentality, and we can do better.
Right. And we will, and your work will live on forever.
I hope it helps forever. I hope
Yeah.
because we can always do better, right?
Yeah, always. And that is the project to do better. To do
Exactly.
better, be better, help
For
others.
all of us to do better for all of humanity.
Hmm.
And we're
Ça, c'est
counting
vrai.
on you, young people.
Yeah, oh yeah. And I'm so glad that I got the opportunity to meet you because this work to me is profound. Again, I think when we first spoke, I said always had these same feelings, but I just didn't really know how to express it. I didn't really have the words to put, but I always knew, always felt it was there, you
Mhm.
know? And then reading your works has helped me understand how to internalize this and then, like you say, help someone else, introduce somebody else to it.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you, Jaivian. I really, really appreciate
No,
being
thank
able to
you.
pass the torch.
No, and I would do my best to continue to pass that on to others. And I'm really, I'm really eager to get your book to the general public, not just in America, but
Hmm.
starting in America because I feel like we here need it the most, you know, but then after
Exactly.
that it branches out to tout le monde.
Tout le monde. And that's what phase four is about. I used to think that Europe was already at phase two, but here in Portugal, yeah, Portugal is almost kind of like the 51st state of the United States in a lot of ways. Um, but even so, Europe is almost in phase two, basically. But from there, there's still so much that everyone can do if we want it. But we have to resolve to work together rather than to compete. I
Right.
think
Oh
that's
yeah.
the real foundation.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Totalement, totalement.
Hmm. And it's
Zoom
something that,
Zoom is telling me I have
uh,
1 minute left
oh,
of my
okay.
free trial.
Thank you
I'm so
so
sorry.
much. No,
I am
that's all
so
right.
sorry.
No, it's all
Um
right. I really appreciate your interview and being able to pass the torch to you, kiddo.
of course, and we will stay in correspondence.
Yeah.
And I will also, like I said, I'm going to work on a QR code that will directly link people to your book and your
Hmm.
works.
Okay.
And I just want to thank you again and again. Merci beaucoup.
Merci
Uh,
beaucoup à toi.
and à bientôt.
À bientôt. À plus. Bisous. Euh,
Bisous.
bisous. Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup à toi.